How's it going? I'm Chris with the Prodigy Street Team. I'm out here at Jack McLean Park in Tallahassee, and we're going to be doing some match play today. It's 24 holes, par, a lot. But yeah, so we'll hopefully get some good video here. So this is hole one. It's 320 uphill, ends to the right. So I'm throwing a D2 max forehand. Putt-putt. So this is my buddy Patrick. Him and I are right about the same rating, and he's throwing a D3 max here. He puts a little bit too much hyzer on it and leaves himself with about a 60-footer. So this is the first hole. I'm throwing a D3 max forehand, and I turn it over a little bit too much and leave myself with probably about 75. So I'm about 75 away. I just pitch up for my 3. Pat's got about 45. He puts with Lunas. This is to take the hole, and we just end up pushing with the 3. After pushing on the first hole, it brings us to hole 2. It's a 290-foot tunnel shot that ends with the basket on the left. He's throwing an H3. It takes an early tree and bounces to the left. I'm throwing an F1 here. I have a pretty okay drive. I hit the gap, but I end up hitting a tree about 50 away from the basket. This is where Pat's drive ended up for hole 2. He doesn't really have much, so he has to go over the top with the tomahawk here, and he actually ends up going long of the basket, about 40 long. This is where I ended up on my drive for hole 2. I give it a little bit of a run with my PA4, but don't give it enough. This is Pat's putt for 3. He unfortunately hits a tree, and then I make my putt for 3 to take the hole. Alright, this is hole 3. I'm throwing an FX2. I'm up 1-0. So this hole has a couple different ways that you can attack it. I personally like throwing a forehand hyzer shot around the tree to the left, but otherwise you can go straight up the gut, and there's a better tunnel there. Pat's throwing a D2 max forehand. He just has a little bit of a misrelease and ends up early and ends up far to the right. This is Pat's drive on hole 3. He has to take a patent pending and hits an early tree. At this point, Pat knows that he's pretty much lost the hole, but just wants to play it out. So he gives it a little bit of a run here. And just misses. Drive fought through the trees pretty well, so I'm left with about a 25-footer, and I make that to go up 2-0. This is hole 4. It's 305, slight ending to the right, but otherwise just a straight tunnel shot. I'm throwing an F5 here. So I like throwing something that I can throw almost flatter on a little hyzer, and then it flips and turns a little bit. I do that, but it hits a tree. For Pat's drive, he's throwing an H3 V2. He has a little bit of a misrelease, and it hits a tree and kicks to the left. Pat's second throw on hole 4. Woo! Okay, come here. Oh. 2-1, Chris leads. Pat's got the box after winning the last hole. He throws an H3 V2 on a hyzer and ends up, I think, about 45 short. I'm also throwing an H3 V2 here. So with this hole, there's like a little ridge that's probably 45 away from the basket that you want to get over just because it stops your disc. I'm able to, and I'm end up with about a 20-footer. Pat's drive ends up probably about 45 away. I miss his actual putt, but he missed it. I end up with about a 15 to 20 footer, and I'm able to convert on that to go up 3-1. Alright, this is hole 6, 220, either the tunnel shot to the right up the gut or forehand to the left. I'm taking the forehand. So that's the FX2 again. I give it a pretty good shot and actually go about 30 past the basket. If If I wasn't throwing the forehand here, I'd be throwing M4 up the middle. Pat's got a ways to go here after his drive. He's throwing A3 forehand here, and he converts pretty well on it and puts it right next to the basket.
Good shot.
So this is where my drive ends up, probably about 25 away. I'm putting with PA3s. Maybe I should try P Model S. This is hole 7.
Hole 7, 285.
About a 300-foot shot. You can take pretty much any way to get there as far as backhand or forehand. I've been throwing the forehand a lot recently, so I do that and have a little bit of a misrelease and nose up. I'm left with about a 50, 100-footer. So Pat steps up and sees his opportunity. He throws his Thunderbird really good and puts it pretty much next to the basket.
A1.
Nice up. Good putt.
This is hole 8, it's a par 4, 490, straight through the gap and then way up to the right.
So for this hole, in order to birdie it, you really have to have 2 good drives. Unfortunately, I turn it over a little bit too much and still hit an early tree. So I still have a ways to go. I probably have about a 320, 340 footer. I'm going with a D2 forehand here on a flex line. I get a good flex out of it, but I think I threw it just a little bit too nose up and leave myself with about a 40 footer. Pat's going with a strike turnover shot here. It works out pretty well, but he's still left with about a 40, 50 footer. So this basket's a little bit elevated. I give it a little half run and leave myself with a 10 footer.
Excuses. Oh.
Pat's still got the box here on hole 9. It's about a 300-foot shot where you want to pure one of the 2 gaps, either to the left or the right, and he does not do that and ends up with a 100-footer. So I'm going with the FX2 again. Pretty much I'm trying to aim for the left of this tree in the middle, and I hit the tree in the middle.
So he's probably 100 out here. Looks like he's going with the Luna.
God.
So after Pat's shots, I know I just have to put it up there. So I'm going with the A1 here, and it turns out pretty okay. I ended up about 15 past the basket, and Pat concedes the hole. Hole 10 is kind of a tweener hole. It's a 360 downhill, but it really takes 2 shots. I'm throwing a H3 thumber and pretty much do exactly what I want it to do. For Pat's drive, he's going with a rock 3. He has a misrelease and turns it over and concedes the hole. This is usually where I end up around with the thumber. I'm throwing a A3 just to practice the shot.
Oof.
Hole 11 is a 220-foot shot with a low ceiling. I throw an MX3 and end up about 20 away. That's going back to his rock 3 here. He has a okay drive, but it just ends up a little bit short. Pat's left with about a 40-footer, I'd say, maybe 50. He gives it a good bid with the jump putt, but just a little short. So I need to make this to get the stroke on Pat. I'll wait up and line it up for a minute, and then unfortunately miss it and stay pushed.
Alright, this is hole 12. I'm up by 3 strokes currently, or 3 holes currently. This is 300, finishing just a little bit to the right. I'm throwing an M4. Back up. So Pat takes the opportunity that I gave him to have a real good drive here with his rock 3. He puts it close enough that I can seed the hole and go up by 2 now instead of 3.
This is hole 13. It's probably about 300 total, but you have to get up around that gap to the right, and then it's another 200 or 150 or so. I personally throw the thumber over the top there through like that ish gap.
So Pat's got the box after I conceded the last hole. He goes with an A3 forehand and puts it a little bit too close to the woods.
All right, go ahead.
Pat's up around the corner. I'm throwing the thumber here with an F3. Unfortunately, he kind of loses it in the screen, but I'm like 20 feet long of the basket. Pat concedes the hole, but I want my birdie putt. So I've had really good luck with the thumber on this hole occasionally. I've come really close to acing it. One day it's going to happen. This hole 14, I'm back up by 3 holes now. This hole is actually pretty difficult. It kind of plays like a question mark. You have to flex it around this first tree like I did and then have it end to the left. It's a really hard 2, but a good 3. Pat's going with the H3V2 again. It goes a little bit too high for this low ceiling, but it actually doesn't end up too bad, and he's on the side of the fairway. So Pat's kind of on the side of the fairway here. He tries to pitch up with an A2 and just puts a little bit too much on it and goes about 30 long. This is where my drive ended up. I give it a half run with a PA4 and put it underneath the basket. This is Pat for his comebacker to tie the hole, and he misses, and I go up by 4.
This is hole 15. It is 340. Big dog, so it's probably 200 or so to that little gap up there, and then from there it's another 100 or so.
Even though it's short, this hole almost plays like a par 4 in that you really have to have 2 shots to get at it. The curve around to the left is so far that I just throw an A3, and so does Pat, just to get in the middle of the fairway, because you really don't want to end up like behind where Pat is. And when I throw like fairway drivers, that's usually where I end up. After Pat flubbed his upshot, I see that there's a chance and give it a half bid with my PA4, but just put it a little bit too high. And then this is Pat's next shot.
Nope, not high enough.
He actually sends it a little bit long. And then I'm up to putt. So if I make this putt, then I take the hole. But I don't.
I missed my putt
So
for
now
3,
Pat
so this
has
is
to
Pat
make his comebacker to push the
trying
hole.
to make his comebacker to
This is probably from
push for
about
4.
25, 30. And he sinks it.
Good putt.
So this is another par 4. It's 395. This is a forehand shot off the tee, and then it's a good 250, 300 down the fairway. Flip it. Back up. Throwing the SX2 again. So this is another hole where you're really just trying to have a good drive that leaves you in the middle of the fairway to then give yourself a chance for a good upshot, because it is pretty far down there. So my drive actually breaks through the bushes there pretty well, and I end up in the middle. Pat's throwing the Sexton Firebird, and he has probably one of the best drives on this hole that I've seen. So this is where my drive ended up. Like I said, you basically just want to be somewhere in this fairway for your upshot. It's probably about 150, maybe 120. I'm throwing a PA4. It's slightly downhill, so it goes a little bit farther. I think I go long initially, and then when I get up to the basket, I'm like 5 feet away. So this is where Pat's drive ended up. So he was probably 40 feet closer than I was. He throws a Luna up there, and it skids right underneath the basket. So we push for 3s after I make my putt. Good birds here. 17. It's about 295 uphill, and then a hard dog leg to the left. I'm throwing the FX2 here. This drive, you have to really throw a fairway or a distance driver, even though it's only about 300 feet, because it's uphill some. So if you're trying to actually get inside the circle, you need something that's going to go about 300 and then skip up and get into the circle. I think Pat's throwing a Wraith here.
and he hits a little bit of side stuff also. So we're both end up with drives that we're just going to have to pitch up. This is Pat's drive. He has a little bit of an awkward stance, but he's able to pitch up successfully and put it right under the basket. And this is where I ended up. I give it a little half bid with the PA4. And dink off the bottom. So we push the hole again.
About 260 downhill. There's OB long of the basket where someone's yard is. I'm throwing a PA4.
Ooh.
Sit down. Sit down. That's wrong.
This is where Pat's drive ended up after I had to pitch out. He's able to make the putt and take the hole, so I go back up by 3.
This is hole 19. It is 290 uphill. You gotta get above the ravine there. Come here, putt.
This is probably one of the harder par 3s out here. You really have to have a good drive, and then even if you have a good drive, you can still end up in the ravine in the middle of the hole and just have nothing. So I usually like to throw something a little understable that I try to flip out of the box and just end up on the right side of the hole, because I don't want to end up where Pat just was. So he had to pitch up, and then this is the ravine I was talking about. And then still, once you get up to the basket, it's on like a little bit of a hill as well. So I've seen people like 4-putt on this basket a lot. Pat has another little misdrive and ends up back in the ravine. This is where my drive ended up. I'm going with the A3 Tomahawk, and I started a little bit too far left, and it ends up going in the ravine also. So this is Pat trying to pitch out for his 4, I think. Once again, this is kind of where we know that he lost the hole, but he's just trying to play it out. So he still hits another tree and is left with another long putt. So since this is my 3 and I know I've got the hole, I just pitch up and take an easy 4.
Alright, this is hole 20. Probably 180 down there. Pretty much straight down and a little bit on the left.
So this is another hole where I go back and forth between throwing a mid or a putter, because with the putter it's kind of hard to get there because of the low ceiling. Pat ends up to the right of the fairway, and I ended up in the woods to the left. We're both able to pitch out and make our 3s and push the hole.
Alright, this is hole 21. It's 265. Kind of up 200 feet and then a gentle fade to the right. I'm throwing a D2 max.
So Pat has to win every hole from this point out in order to not lose, since I'm up by 4 and there's 4 holes to go. I throw a D2 max and turn it over. Pat throws a H3V2. And he also turns it over into the woods. So we both have pretty obstructed shots. Pat has to throw a thumber. Can't tell if it's a thumber or a tomahawk. But he has to throw a thumber to get out, and he's still left with a long ways. And then I should have an easier shot, and I just hit the tree right in front of me.
Wow.
So this is for my 3. And I hit the basket.
Ooh.
And this is for Pat's 3, so this is for him to stay alive. And he's a little bit short.
Alright, so that was the end of the match play. I won by 4 strokes with 3 holes to go. We're on hole 22 here now. This is about 200 I throw a forehand and it's just a little hyzer shot. I'm throwing an A2. Back of the box. So this is a hole I used to always throw thumbers on back before I worked on my forehand some more, because the fairway just shapes nicely for the way that a thumber flips. But I throw the A2 and it hits a early tree. Pat's throwing the Thunderbird.
Yeah, that looked better.
And he has a little turnover, and then it actually just fights all the way through and leaves them with a 15-footer. We already know that we can't make 15-footers. This is hole 23. It's 370, pretty much dead straight ahead. I'm throwing a D3 max. So this hole is kind of a crush in order to get there for a birdie. It's just slightly uphill, so it plays a little bit longer than it really is. I have a pretty okay drive here, but I still end up probably 30 short, 40 short. Pat's throwing a strike here. He also gets it to flip up a little bit, and then it just hyzers out.
Even doing the course maintenance for me.
Same spot.
Now, when you lose 4-3, what happens? 4 and 3, I mean.
Ooh.
Oh. Alright, this is hole 24. It's 325 downhill, pretty much straight ahead. Just got to hit the good gap in the middle. This is the end of the video, so I just want to thank y'all for watching. Please like and subscribe and leave me a comment. I'm going to try to be doing more stuff like this, so tune in. So once again, I just want to thank my local sponsor, Play It Again Sports Tallahassee. Justin and the Play It Again Sports team has been awesome. They're a huge help, and support your local stores. And then I also want to thank Prodigy Disc. I'm on the Prodigy Street team. They make some great stuff, so check out prodigydisc.com.
Not very good.
I'm going to be making more videos. I'd like to put out one every 2 weeks or so. I already have another one filmed and just needs to be edited. I'm going to be doing the Simon Challenge, so check back in a week or two. Thanks for watching.